It was a cool, crisp autumn afternoon when I decided to explore the off-road biking trails in rural Massachusetts. The colorful leaves were falling, and the woods beckoned with an eerie beauty. The anticipation of adventure bubbled inside me as I pedaled my way into the heart of the forest, completely unaware of the chilling encounter that awaited me. As I delved deeper into the labyrinth of gnarled trees and winding paths, my surroundings began to blur. I couldn't help but feel a growing unease, as if the woods were conspiring to lead me astray. I pressed on, determined to navigate the unfamiliar terrain. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows among the trees. The forest's once vibrant colors now turned sinister, and a shroud of darkness descended upon me. Panic began to creep in, but I pushed it aside, telling myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. I rode for what felt like hours, trying to find my way back, but the eerie forest seemed to shift around me. That's when I first noticed her, a strange, hunched figure lurking behind the trees. An elderly woman, her wrinkled face illuminated by the feeble beam of my headlamp. I couldn't help but be alarmed by her presence. What was an old woman doing out here in the middle of nowhere? She watched me with an unsettling grin, her eyes gleaming with an eerie light. As I continued on the trail, she kept appearing, always just at the edge of my vision, always just out of reach. It was as if she was following me, stalking me. The eerie silence was broken only by the sound of my heavy breathing and the soft rustling of leaves. With my heart pounding, I finally decided to confront her. "Who are you? Why are you following me?" I shouted, my voice trembling. She didn't answer, only continuing to smile that chilling smile. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to move, unable to escape. Then, I heard a whisper, a guttural murmur that sent shivers down my spine. "You're not alone," she hissed, her voice dripping with malevolence. And then, from the darkness, emerged more figures, a legion of elderly men and women, all with the same eerie smiles, all with the same malevolent intent. They surrounded me, their whispers growing louder, their eyes glowing with a sinister light. I tried to flee, but they closed in on me, their skeletal hands reaching for me, their voices chanting in a language I couldn't comprehend. The forest itself seemed to come alive, the trees bending and twisting, creating a nightmarish maze. Just as I was about to give in to despair, a sudden burst of adrenaline coursed through me. I pedaled with all my might, crashing through the underbrush, my heart racing, my breath ragged. The forest seemed to fight back, but I pushed through, refusing to become another lost soul in those haunted woods. Finally, I burst out of the woods into the safety of an open field. The moonlight washed over me, and the sinister figures were gone. I had escaped, but the terror of that night still haunts my dreams. If you ever find yourself in unfamiliar woods, remember this story. Be vigilant, trust your instincts, and if you encounter something that sends shivers down your spine, don't hesitate to flee. Sometimes the darkest places hide the most bone-chilling secrets, and not all stories have a happy ending. I couldn't believe my luck when I stumbled upon the listing. Free bike, excellent condition. It seemed too good to be true, but the image of that shiny red bike was too tempting to resist. The address was in a remote wooded area just outside of town. I had my doubts, but the allure of a free bike was impossible to ignore. The anticipation built as I drove to the coordinates given. The GPS led me deeper into the forest, and my excitement mingled with a growing unease. There were no signs of civilization around, just the dense trees and the winding, narrow road. It felt like I was entering a different world. Eventually, I arrived at the designated spot. I parked my car and cautiously approached the lone, red bike resting against a tree. It was in perfect condition, as the listing had promised. My heart raced as I imagined myself riding it through the woods, my worries fading away. Just as I reached for the bike, a soft, eerie voice whispered from behind a nearby bush, "You found it." Startled, I turned to see a man emerging from the shadows. He was tall and lanky, with wild, unkempt hair and a peculiar smile that sent shivers down my spine. He introduced himself as Gene and said he had been waiting for me. His presence was unnerving, and I hesitated for a moment, but the allure of the bike pulled me in. With a forced smile, I thanked him and mounted the bike. Gene wished me well, his smile never fading, and disappeared into the woods. As I pedaled away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The bike glided smoothly along the winding forest path, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of liberation. The beauty of the woods enveloped me, and I was momentarily lost in the moment. But soon I noticed that the path had become increasingly narrow and overgrown, and I realized I had no idea where I was headed. The woods grew darker and the silence was deafening. Panic began to set in as I realized I was lost, with no cell phone signal and no idea of how to find my way back. I had fallen into a trap, and the free bike was the bait. With each turn of the pedals, the forest seemed to close in around me. I was trapped in a sinister labyrinth, and the shadows whispered dreadful secrets. Time seemed to blur, and I had lost all track of it. I knew I had to escape, but the more I tried, the deeper I seemed to descend into the forest's nightmarish grip. Exhausted and terrified, I stumbled upon a clearing. At the center lay a sinister sight. A circle of old rotting bikes, each one looking eerily familiar. It was a macabre graveyard of those who had fallen for the same trap. As I backed away, a chilling voice echoed through the woods. "You're not the first, and you won't be the last." I fled, pushing the free bike away, and somehow managed to find my way out of the forest. My heart pounded with fear and adrenaline as I drove back to safety. The experience had left me scarred, and I couldn't shake the image of the eerie man named Gene. My advice to anyone who stumbles upon a deal that seems too good to be true: trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Some traps are disguised as tempting offers, and the price for falling into them can be far more terrifying than you ever imagined. It was a moonless night, the kind that fills the small town with a shroud of darkness, inviting adventure. My friends and I, a group of teenagers hungry for thrills, decided to set out on a late-night bike ride. Our town, usually quiet and peaceful, took on an eerie charm under the cover of darkness. The only sounds were the soft whir of our bike tires and the chirping of distant crickets. Our escapade began innocently enough. We pedaled through the winding streets, the cool breeze in our faces, and the dim glow of streetlights casting long, ominous shadows. Laughter echoed through the deserted streets as we told stories, each one a little scarier than the last. The night held promise, and we reveled in the thrill of it. But as the night wore on, a feeling of unease began to creep over us. It started as a whisper of paranoia, an irrational fear of the darkness itself. Soon, we couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Our laughter turned to hushed whispers, and we cast furtive glances over our shoulders. That's when we saw it. A pair of dim headlights in our rear-view mirrors. A car was following us, moving quietly and ominously behind. Panic surged through us as we realized that this was no ordinary encounter. The car matched our every turn and twist, never getting closer, but never falling behind either. Fear took control, and we pedaled as fast as our legs could carry us. The streets blurred into a labyrinth of fear, and the car remained a menacing shadow in our wake. We could hear the low hum of the engine, a sinister background noise to our desperate flight. As we raced through the town, I couldn't help but wonder who was behind the wheel of that relentless car and what they wanted from us. Our pursuit felt like a scene from a horror movie, and the tension in the air was almost suffocating. Finally, we reached my home, and the car continued its pursuit, staying just beyond the reach of our panicked breaths. Desperation washed over us as we sprinted inside, bolting the doors and shutting off the lights. We cowered in the darkness, hearts pounding, waiting for the nightmare to end. Minutes turned into hours, and eventually, the car's presence faded away. The terror subsided and we cautiously ventured outside. But the night had left us shaken, forever haunted by the encounter. Who had been following us? What were their intentions? These questions clawed at us, but there were no answers. As we reflect on that chilling night, there is one piece of advice I can offer, something that has haunted me ever since. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, don't dismiss it. Listen to that voice in the back of your mind that warns you of danger. It might just save your life. The night of our late-night bike ride will forever remain a harrowing memory, a reminder of the darkness that lurks in the world, hidden in the shadows. And as we gathered in the safety of my home that night, the fear still fresh in our minds, we knew we would never forget the sinister car that pursued us, forever leaving us questioning the identity and motives of our stalker.